It's Mailbag Monday on Locked On Angels, and you asked some of the following questions. Do the Halos make a trade with the Padres now that they signed Xander Bogaerts? Now that Kodai Senga is off the market, who's the right-handed pitcher that we're going to sign for the Halos? And are teams saving their money for Shohei Ohtani? Don't you go near Shohei. All that and more coming to you. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Every show is free and available on all platforms like Apple Podcast and Spotify. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. We love 5 stars, especially at Christmas. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Hey, thanks for making us your first listen of the day. This is Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, it's a Mailbag Monday, and our listeners and viewers of Locked On Angels had a lot of questions for us, and I think the biggest question on everybody's mind is shortstop currently. So who's going to be our shortstop come 2023? We had a couple of comments, and I like these two. Let me read these. We got Joe Hill from Twitter, who said, "All I want for Christmas is Dansby Swanson in an Angels uniform."
Let's go, Joe.
That. And A with AM Baseball 22 on Instagram said, "Will Dansby Swanson sign with the Halos?" What do you think?
I like Dansby. He is not my top shortstop. I think I would prefer Carlos Correa over Dansby Swanson. But if we're going to sign the guy, I think that we're going to actually get a cheaper deal. Now, I say that with a caveat, knowing that all of the deals that have been signed in the last few days have been a lot of money. Show me the money, 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 money. So I think Dansby will probably be the cheapest. I feel like he would be gritty and gutty and Eckstein-ish for us if he signed with us. However, I do think that it's going to have to be probably $20 million a year. Do you agree?
At least. Oh, yeah. He's going to get at least $20 million. 23 maybe is where I would put him. But I like him, and it's certainly an upgrade from what we had. He wasn't the best shortstop on the market out of the big four. But Trey Turner's done, and Xander Bogaerts is signed. So really it just leaves Carlos Correa and Dansby Swanson. How about this one from Hordez? He said, "Do you think Jean Segura would be a good fit at shortstop? His defensive numbers aren't that great. Definitely has a more consistent bat. Could be a good fit to split time with Squid." I think Jean Segura is more of a second baseman, and that's his natural fit. I think that we're not going to want to make any compromises at shortstop, given that the shift is going away this season, and you're going to need 2 infielders on each side of second base with their feet in the dirt. That's the rule. And I think that if Jean Segura would come to this team, you'd probably see him at second, and then you might see somebody like David Fletcher playing at shortstop, which is not terrible. You and I love Fletch, and we think that he's going to have a great season. But if you have the opportunity to upgrade, I think the Angels have to upgrade, and they've missed out on 2 of the 4 options at this point. So I think it's a high time for them to upgrade.
Yeah. Do you think that it's a bat, or do you think that we need a shortstop? Like, what if we got a good second baseman? Would you be happy with that if it was a really strong second baseman that came in and then we just shifted Fletch and maybe Rengifo to short and had Urshela kind of play the infield? Or do you think that it has to be the shortstop?
I just think with the Dansby and Correa options out there, you've got to make that move. You just got to go for it, because not only is Correa historically a good shortstop and a good defender, but he's a great bat too. And to bring both of those to the table, I think is so important. I think we've had our defensive shortstop in Andrew Velasquez, and we kind of had a good bat and a amazing shortstop in Andrelton Simmons. There was a good few years there where Simmons was hitting up in the high 200s, 280, 290, that sort of thing. And so he brought a little bit of both to the table. And I don't think anybody's on his level defensively. However, I think we just got to make an upgrade. And perhaps, if you get a better bat at second, you can have a better defender at shortstop. But as long as those options are out there, I think you got to go for it.
Yeah, here's a question, Johnny, from Eric Luna _22 at Twitter. He says, "It's obvious that the luxury tax isn't isn't keeping the Angels from making moves, which is a first, right? And so he mentions Dansby Swanson, but he says, if not, what type of trade options do you think are out there? And he's been listening, and he really likes the Rosario trade that you've mentioned. And also, he mentions Fernando Tatis. I know that's a big contract.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about a trade for another shortstop? Is there another name out there besides Rosario? And Johnny, what do you think about Tatis?
Well, look, I think with the Padres having an abundance of shortstop, I think Ha-Sung Kim makes a lot of sense for us,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
defensively. And his bat will probably sit around 250, 260. I know that's just average, but still better than what we had, and a great defender at shortstop. The only caveat with that is I think the Padres are just going to move everybody around. I think Bogarts is going to be at short. Kim will be at second. The Crone zone moves to first base with Jake Cronenworth. So,
right.
And Tatis will play the outfield. So I really don't see the Padres getting rid of any of those guys unless they're frustrated with Tatis. But then Tatis has never been the best shortstop. He's Tati-E6 for a reason, right? Because he's always causing errors over there at shortstop.
Right.
And he won't be able to play for a good long while. He's still got to serve the rest of his suspension going into 2023.
Right.
And it's a lot of money. I think perhaps you could get him for not a lot of players because of the money and the issues. And maybe the Padres are just ready to move on. I don't think they are. I think they'll keep him around. I think he'll play the outfield. That's a super team, Mike. Man, Soto, Tatis, Bogarts, Machado. Come on. That's insane. So I think the Padres will want to run it with Tatis. I still think Ahmed Rosario makes a lot of sense.
Agreed.
I think part of the reason why the Angels may have been going after Contreras is because they wanted to trade a defensive shortstop in Max Stassi to somebody like Cleveland, who is valuing a defensive shortstop and probably doesn't have the dollars to get a Contreras type. Now, I know we didn't land him. Contreras wanted to go to, catching royalty with the Cardinals, and that's what he did. But I still think Rosario makes a lot of sense. If the Angels can pull that off, that would be fantastic. Mike, Angel News, Anaheim Angels on Twitter said, Carlos Correa, 10 years, $300 million to the Angels. What do you think?
Wow. I love Carlos Correa. I think that he would be a great fit for our team. I just don't want to make sure that I want to make sure that we are not giving all the money away and not signing Shohei, right? And if the luxury tax isn't an issue, then and we're ready to give Shohei the money. I think this is a great move. 10 years, $300 million is $30 million a year. That's four guys. Would it be four guys on this team? Trout, Rendon, Ohtani, and Correa making $30 million. So unless we're going to be the New York Mets, then we make this move, right? Like, because the Mets have really gone up in payroll as well. So I like Carlos Correa. And as you talk about the shortstop position, I think he brings what we need at the shortstop position, and he brings a great bat into this lineup as well. And that makes that lineup really, really deep with Correa on this team.
Hey, Gregory Hopkins on Twitter said, what's our middle infield situation going to look like? Rengifo has a solid end to his last season. Fletcher's looked like a shell of himself. Can we fully trust those two to be our starters? And if not, who rides the pine to make way for someone else? What do you think?
I think we're going to see a healthy Fletch, and his numbers in 2019 and 2020 were really strong, even though 2020 was
and 21 for a while too.
And in 21 he was good, but in 2020 he played 58 games and he was hitting over 300, and he had a high on base percentage, and that's the Fletch that I think we're going to see this year. When it comes to Rengifo, I think he needs at bats, and so I think we're going to see him more often, maybe more often than we see Fletch, maybe Urshela. I think maybe because they're going to move some pieces around.
I think Urshela is going to be in there every day.
I think you're right. I think we might see Rengifo more often than Fletch, possibly, just because it feels like he needs those at bats, because when he gets hot, he's really, really good. What do you think?
Yeah, as far as David Fletcher, I'm not worried about him hitting. And look, he's not the power hitter. He's not the on base plus slugging guy, but he's the guy who moves the runners over on base. He gets a guy from first to second, second to third, third to home, and he's going to drop in bloop singles, and that's what he's going to do. And he's going to be on base for Mike Trout and Rendon and Shohei. So I really don't see a world where Fletch doesn't get back to who he was. I saw an interview with Phil Nevin saying that Fletch is putting on some muscle, which is good. So perhaps that will add some strength to his bat going into next season.
Love it.
Plantrich on Twitter also brought up Ha-Sung Kim, and I think that again, he made some good comparisons. He said he's got more defensive runs saved than Swanson. He had an OPS plus of 107, and Swanson had a 115 OPS plus. He says, what about like Joe Adell and Rengifo, or maybe if the Padres are looking for pitching, maybe Adell and Suarez. I honestly, again, I think Ha-Sung Kim is a great option. I just don't think the Padres are going to move him. I agree. They're going to roll with that infield that they have.
I agree. I think they're in win now mode. That's why they signed Bogarts. Like, this isn't about the long game. This is about right now. And Kim is a great second baseman. He's great defensively. I think they're going to keep him. I don't think they're going to trade him unless we blow them out of the water. And I think it would take more than Joe Adell and Jose Suarez.
And we want to keep Suarez. I think that we want to keep him as our number 5. I think that's important. Last 2 questions I'm going to read together for this segment. It's Angels 2023 World Series champions. I love that name. It's a picture of Carlos Correa in an Angels uniform. I love that. That's their profile pic. Do you think the Angels are so quiet recently because we're in on a big free agent like Correa? And then NB on Twitter kind of asked a similar thing with the news of us, or with everything being so quiet since the news of us being the final 3 for Contreras. Are we working on signing someone soon? Who will be the most likely player we sign next? So not a lot of news lately, Mike, about our Halos. Right. Do you think there's something to that?
I don't think it's a signing. I think it's a trade. I think Perry's in the works because of how he's built this team with trades, and we haven't had to break the bank to sign all these players. So my gut tells me that we probably won't get one of the big main shortstops, but I also have a feeling that Perry has a couple of great deals under his belt, and they're about ready to announce that between now and maybe the first of the year, or maybe even after the first of the year. I think it's going to be more of a trade than it will be signing somebody big. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I think Perry really wants Dansby Swanson. I think that's where this is going. I would not be surprised to see that move happen soon.
Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're making our predictions, and we're going to tell you who the Halos will sign this week, my friends. Locked On Angels is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer to esports. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. I hope you made a bet on Brock Purdy, because that guy looks fantastic for the 49ers. And if you love sports podcasts, you're going to love all that they offer at BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
We want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. And for your second listen, you got to check out Locked On Sports Today. Look, there's a lot of stories in sports. There's a lot of big games that happened this past weekend in the NFL. Of course, you got the NBA and the poor Lakers who are struggling. And you're going to find out about all of this on Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories in sports and the games that matter the most. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today is available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And it is a Mailbag Monday, so let's continue with your questions. Val Xavier on Instagram didn't ask a question, just made a statement. Epler versus Minasian, 1-0 Epler because he signed Kodai Senga. Were you bummed about that signing?
Mike, $15 million a year for Kodai Senga came in way lower than what you and I predicted. It was funny because our buddy Andrew from Angels Top Play says, hey, you guys were closer than MLB Network, because the network pegged him to be in the 20s, the 20 millions.
Yeah.
And then he said, you guys need a show. You need your own show on MLB Network. I said,
there's a show. That's a show.
There's a show. That's a show. And that's what we'll do. That's it. That we'll have our own show. But Epler versus Minasian, 1-0 about Senga. Look, Epler's got Cohen behind him and he can sign whoever he wants. I feel like any GM could do this at this point, Mike.
Yeah. Speaking of Andrew, our buddy from Angels Top Plays, he did make a good point this week where he said, you're not a good GM if you're just throwing money at people. Now, yes, it's great to sign all of these big names and it does help your team. But Andrew's of the opinion that creativity through trades and creativity through moves is really what makes a team great. Now, I know he's biased towards the Angels, as we are, and I'm just going to say I agree with him 100%.
Well, look, you can put together a team through money. Absolutely. Anybody can do that. Cohen's got an unlimited amount, and that's what he's doing. Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I think that point stands in that if you get creative in making trades and getting the right pieces and building out a good roster, you can be just as good as the Mets, who exited the first round. Did I add an extra syllable there?
I was going to say, what did
exited?
You say? The English major said exited it.
Amazing. These two questions are very important. The Big C23 on Instagram and then Landon Harville on Twitter. They're both asking about, what do we do now that Kodai Senga is off the board? Who do we want most? And what do we do next? What do you think?
Yeah, as I read the third question here too from Twitter, at Kentiro Nishi 24 says, after missing Senga, if I were the GM, I would target Michael Wacha. You brought up Michael Wacha.
I targeted Michael Wacha when I was GM.
and he said, I think he's a solid pitcher, has an elite changeup. I like Michael Wacha. I think that he's an option. I like Chris Bassett. I think that he's an option. We need a right-handed pitcher. Somebody's going to ask later on. I think it was DanBoy92 said, a mystery team for Rodon. Could it be us? Johnny, I don't think that we're going to sign another left-handed starter because we have so many left-handed starters. We have 4.
Yeah.
And so I think that we need a right-handed starter. So my opinion here, John, is that we're going to get a right-hander somewhere, or they're just really stoked about Griffin Canning and they're going to slot him in, or Michael Lorenzen comes back. They're going to make that kind of move. I think they're really fired up about Griffin Canning. Somebody on Twitter said that he is our Jacob deGrom. I know that is huge and stretched, right? But I think Griffin Canning's a gamer and could actually be a great piece to this team. Not at the level of deGrom or not at the level of a Bassett, but I think if they go after a right-handed pitcher, Wacha's an option, Bassett's an option. I can't think of anybody else that would be a great option for us. Any names come to mind for you?
Well, I just think about the way that this rotation is structured. You have your ace in Shohei Ohtani. You've got Patrick Sandoval, Reed Detmers. Those guys are very solid, not to mention Tyler Anderson, who I think is going to bring a lot to the rotation this season. And yeah, you need one more right-handed starter. I think Jose Suarez is still a bit of a question mark. He's pretty hit or miss.
Yeah.
But then really we're looking for who? A 6th starter, which if you sign somebody better than a Jose Suarez, that means Suarez will be the 6th starter, and he'll get skipped on those off days so that Shohei can pitch, and
which I think is okay.
I think is okay too. But so I look at this rotation and I think, what do we need? Do we need that next bit, or do we need that huge arm? Do we need that Chris Bassett type? Do we need the Rodon type? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And while it wouldn't hurt to have that, obviously you would love to have a 1, 2, 3 of Ohtani and Bassett and Anderson or something like that. But if we're going for the middle of the road, a Michael Wacha fits, Michael Lorenzen fits, right?
Yeah.
These guys fit this rotation because you kind of already have your top 3 in Shohei and Anderson and Sandoval. So I don't think it hurts to have that. Mike,
and don't forget, Noah Syndergaard is still out there, so he might come back, right? Like we might see him again, and who knows what kind of season he would have, right?
Yeah. Hey, our good friend Scott Freeman, who comments a lot, he actually left us a voicemail, but he also wrote us just to double down, and so it was cool to hear. It's cool to hear Scott's voice. He said,
Scott's real.
Is there a deal we could make for Frankie Montas? Good skills, bombed in New York, so value is low, especially if New York gets Rodon. Maybe they'd want to move his year 3 arbitration salary. What do you think about Montas?
Now, I think Montas could be somebody that we could get for a Joe Adell and maybe like a Luis Rengifo or somebody along those lines.
I think even cheaper, to be honest.
I was going to say maybe even a Levon Soto, like somebody who really hasn't proven themselves yet. Maybe it's a 1-for-1. It's a Joe Adell for Frankie Montas. Maybe Montas needs to be in a place like Oakland, right, where he can not feel the pressure, but it's still going to be a team that is competitive. And when he was with Oakland, he was their best pitcher. So I'd love to see him slot into the Angels rotation. And I agree with Scott. It probably would have been, it could be a really easy trade, and we wouldn't have to give up very much.
I think Montas is very up and down, and he's always been up and down. He's electric when he's on, and when he's off, you got to pay the electric bill because he's short-circuited, right? And that's just who he is. Even our good friend Julio's a big A's fan would tell you that's who Montas has always been, is just very up and down. And when he's on, he's great. When he's not, he's awful to watch. Reminds me of Andrew Heaney, and I don't know if I want to put myself through that emotion again.
No.
But if Montas is
then he's
slotting
out.
in at 5, right, exactly, like that might make the difference. Mike, what do you think about this? David Fletcher Stan asks, Angels should go after Andrew Chafin. I've been saying that. I love Andrew Chafin. Solid late inning lefty, helps boost the bullpen with the lefties Quijada and Loop. Would also be pretty cheap if Perry wanted to stay under the luxury tax. Andrew Chafin?
I think one more arm for that bullpen would be great, especially with Estevez, maybe possibly closing, Jimmy Herget, and then you've got Loop and you got Tepera, and then you don't know where Austin Warren and Andrew Wantz are going to slot in there, and plus
C-Rod.
You have C-Rod, and you have Ortega's in there, and not Ortega's gone. Ollie Ortega.
Yeah, he's there.
Confused on my pictures. Yeah, but yeah, I think he would actually be a really great arm in our bullpen. Plus, he's got experience and he knows what he's doing when he's actually pitching for us. And so I think we can lock down the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th positions with the bullpen we have if we got an Andrew Chafin.
And he's got a stud mustache, which is important for the bullpen.
Today's show is brought to you by Simply Safe. This season, give yourself and your family the peace of mind and protection with the #1 home security system from Simply Safe. Right now, our friends at Simply Safe are giving Locked On Angel listeners 40% off their award-winning security system so that your family can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Simply Safe is a whole home security system with HD cameras for your inside and for your outside. They also offer advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, and they have hazard sensors that detect fires and floods and other threats with your home. So with the top-rated Simply Safe app, being safe is convenient and easy. You can stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere. You can arm, disarm, unlock for guests, grant access with your cameras, or you can adjust your camera settings with the app and adjust your entire settings with the app. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that we recommend at Locked On, and get 40% off the new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB. And remember, there's no safe like Simply Safe.
Mike, I love this statement from James Russell Barton. It kind of fits into the last 2 segments. He said, not a question, just a bold prediction. Angels signed Dansby and Bassett. I'm feeling it.
Love it.
I love that. I love the confidence there and the bold prediction, James. Well done.
Heck yeah. Here's another question, Johnny. Is there any worry from you guys that if we decide to make any more big splashes like a Dansby, they mentioned Kodai before he was signed, that we might not have the money to re-sign Shohei? Also wanted to hear your guys' take on the report that the Dodgers aren't spending this offseason because they're trying to get Shohei next offseason. Wash your mouth out with soap. You guys have, I love this. You guys have reassured me a lot over the last few months. All right, we have a big task ahead of us here, John.
I know.
We've reassured him in the last few months that we're going to keep Shohei, even though the media doesn't think that we will. But I've got to be honest, this report has me second guessing. So with the Dodgers' deep pockets, what do you think? Do you think that they're saving money for Shohei? Could we give him money? Could we match? What's going to happen, John? We need to reassure this listener.
Yeah, Justice E on Instagram. Thanks for sending that question. Mike, let's look at the facts and let's look at what has been going on in the media. First of all, the Angels with new ownership will have plenty of money to re-sign Shohei. No MLB owner is poor. No team is poor. Now, second, whenever we have Shohei as our main topic on Locked On Angels, I'll be transparent with the listeners and the viewers. Our viewership goes up. Our listenership goes up. People want to hear about Shohei Ohtani.
Yep.
So what do the MLB writers do when they want clicks and they want traffic and they want the ad revenue from their pages? They talk about Shohei Ohtani. Mm-hmm. What's more enticing than Shohei Ohtani? Shohei Ohtani on another team and not the Angels.
Yes.
And so these writers will say anything and everything to convince you that Shohei Ohtani is going to make some sort of decision that doesn't involve the Angels. And from what we've seen, you can give Kodai Senga $15 million and he'll choose the Mets. I'm sure he had better offers out there, but he chose the Mets because they are a winner. So let's not forget that the player has to make a decision in this. It's not just the player goes to the highest bidder. It's who's the player going to choose. The Angels gave Shohei Ohtani the opportunity to pitch and hit. They've worked together to figure out what works for him. And he had an MVP season last year and this year. And
yes.
And I think that he appreciates that about the Angels. So, yes, I think that the Angels can spend money and re-sign Shohei Ohtani because they want to put a winning team on the field around him. He wants to win. He said that. And he wants to win with the Angels specifically. For somebody like Ken Rosenthal to speculate wildly about, oh, maybe Mike Trout will want to trade out of Anaheim and he's very affordable. Like, stop speculating. There's no facts there. And all this business about the Dodgers not doing anything because they're saving up for Shohei Ohtani next season. Give me a break. They have
the
60
money.
They have $60 million on the line because they decided to sign Trevor Bauer, the head case, the drama queen, and now look where that got them. They don't know if they have to spend the $60 million on him or not. And like you said, the Dodgers have the money. They don't need to save their pennies. They don't need to pinch. They're trying to decide if they want to let their young guys play. So all of that to say, I'm not worried about anybody who thinks that they can save up money for Shohei Ohtani. Also, in order to get Shohei Ohtani, he's going to have to get to free agency. And we've got a year to work out a deal with him. So good luck getting him in free agency if he even gets there. Rant over.
Whew, I feel so much better. I feel so much better. And Justice, I hope you feel so much better too. Johnny, our friend Ruben Rosas on Instagram said, I'm curious with how crazy the free agent market has been. What would some of the players that are currently on the Angels roster get contract-wise? He mentions Patrick Sandoval, Taylor Ward, Jared Walsh. What do you think, Johnny? I'm looking at Patrick, Walsh, and Ward, and I'm going to say that Patrick would probably get the highest contract.
I think
just
so.
Simply because he's a strong arm and he's young. I could see Taylor Ward getting a 5-year, maybe $50 million deal from somebody. I could see Jared Walsh maybe getting a $40 million deal as of right now.
Yeah.
But I'm also terrible when it comes to numbers. But what do you think? Who's going to get the highest contract of those three guys? And what contracts do you think that you would offer?
I look at the pitching market right now and what people are getting. And Patrick Sandoval to me would get an average value, an annual value of maybe 17, 18, something like that. Because pitchers are in such high demand, proven pitchers. And I think this year he's going to go out and prove himself even more. And I think I'm with you on like Taylor Ward. I could see like 12 million a year. Jared Walsh is interesting. I could see if he gets back to that all-star season and he were to be a free agent, I could see 14 million a year for somebody like Jared Walsh, just because he's so versatile. He's a great defender at first. And on a good year, he'll hit 270, 280 with possibly 25 to 30 home runs. And that's very valuable. Hey, how about Jacob's tweet? He said, does the new trend of large and long contracts shed light on the Pujols deal? I think we're seeing all of these contracts of 10, 11 years, these high year contracts with kind of not a low annual value, but a more reasonable annual value, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say about that, Mike, and in regard to Jacob's question, is Pujols was 32 when he signed his contract.
Right.
And what's Bogart's 31, I think, right now. So
him and Judge are in their 30s now.
Yeah. So, I mean, those 2 years are super valuable. Those 2 years are really important. And so you see Judge and Bogart's getting these 10-year deals in their 30s, 9 years, what have you. Trey Turner got 11 years at 29 years old.
Yeah.
I just think that these guys, they're doing the same thing I think the Angels did 10 years ago. And that's, we'll certainly get a World Series with Pujols on our team within the first 4 or 5 years. And the back half, it won't be so great, but we'll put up with that to get a World Series. Unfortunately, Pujols was kind of hurt right out of the gate. So we never really got the Pujols the Cardinals had. Also, he was 32. I think age 29, 30, 31 make all the difference in the world with those long contracts.
Was he 32 though? Johnny Eggy Nicky always asks some great questions. He asked this question. The new owner has to be allowing Perry to do what he needs to do. No way that Artie's in charge. Do you agree?
I mean, like legally, I don't think that they can do that.
Yeah.
But it does seem like there's no, expectation of coming in under the luxury tax. They haven't touched it yet. They haven't got to the luxury tax yet.
Right.
So I will believe it when I see it. But yes, I think that somebody told Perry that this team is only more valuable if you make the roster more valuable and you put a winner on the field. So that might have everything to do with it. Kind of a follow-up question to that is Yage Bomb's question. How much can a new owner change the course of the upcoming 2023 season, Mike?
I think it just depends on what happens this season. I mean, trade deadline is going to be the really tell of what happens. If we're in competition and the new owners take over on opening day, then they're going to be able to make those calls, or at least have Perry make those calls. And so I think we're going to feel the impact on the trade deadline, whether we are in the race or we are really far out of the race. I think that the owners are going to be the ones that say, Perry, make it happen. And here's what we learned last year, John. Even if you're not really in the race, but you're close enough to like spit on somebody,
you gotta go for it.
Like you go for it. And the Phillies did. And look what happened with Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. And new owner can get a deal done with Shohei. They have all season to work on it. So that's going to be important too. Hey, JT Hirota got all the way in our mailbag. He said, it's a little hot and stuffy in here, but I'll ask a question anyways. The new ownership incoming, is it time for some new Halo uniforms? I love the sea blue and red color scheme they use on social media, and that's actually kind of been tied to the City Connects. Mike, did you see the Trash Pandas debut new uniforms? Those Halo blue. Oh, so good.
I love it.
I'm ready for new stuff, man. Even if we went back to like this color scheme of the 80s Angel hat I'm wearing right now, if you're not watching on YouTube, I love the navy blue and red combination. I would love to see something like that again. I think it's time, especially
if the new owners want to make money. You change the logo and you change the color scheme, and if we like it, we're gonna buy it. And everybody was stoked. Remember the whole ad that started in when Artie was taking over, but Disney still owned it, and it was the Halos are back. Like everybody was so stoked. I love driving around Anaheim and seeing that advertisement around because they put the Halo back on the A. So yeah, I'm down, man. And if they want to make some money, that's a great way to do that.
Absolutely. Hey, Manny Man 2112 said, make your predictions. Who do the Angels sign this week, Mike?
Dansby Swanson. I think that's who we're going to see.
I'm going to double down. Dansby.
Okay.
And I like this one. Joao Barros on Twitter said, give me 2 moves to complete the roster. 2 dream moves if the owner was a Steve Cohen clone, and 2 moves if the owner is Artie and you have no money.
Man, that's a tough one. I think we've mentioned a lot of names in this show that I would want. I think that we would get Carlos Correa, and then I think we would get a starter, and that starter would probably be like a Chris Bassett. I'm trying to think of who else is out there right now that would be expensive. I'm trying to think of the most expensive guy out there right now.
I think Rodon's the most expensive, but again, we don't need another lefty. And I think that's the key. So I'm with you on Bassett.
What if you got money to spend?
right. I'll take another lefty.
Throw another lefty in there.
I'm a lefty. I'm okay with that. Now, if you had Artie money, I think it's Michael Lorenzen and a trade. And that's probably the route we may go.
Michael Lorenzen and probably Fletcher at short, right? And then
not even a trade.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. Now for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. They share some of the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. They're available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. We love hearing from you. Thank you for everybody who sent in mailbag questions.
Yeah.
Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
All right, so because Perry's having a really great off season, we're asking the question, is this one of the best off seasons we've had, if not the best in the last 20 years? So we took 3 different off seasons and we're going to compare them to this off season. We'll give you all the parameters and all the rules, and we'll talk it through and give our grades tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
We hope you'll join us for that conversation. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Angels, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.